Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael, episode 275. After not being with you guys last week, we are now back. Joining me this week, uh, Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing, um, Gail's boyfriend, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., aka both from Three Kings Boxing and Truth and Facts About Sports. What's going on? What's going on, fellas?
It's an honor to have Mr. Chavez on.
Estoy bien, yo aquí con droga and fuma también para listo para. I'm here with drugs and smokes.
Yeah. And Gail from Communities Digital News, she will be joining us shortly, probably raising holy hell about what I just did to her. For those who are new to Power Box Report, Power Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out more information about Power Box Report, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. Check the top right of the blog page. You will find links to where to find us all over social media, where to find us on all platforms that carry RSS feed, where to find the donation links. We do have a donation link to Cash Me and PayPal. And last but certainly not least, where to find a link to my online fitness coaching page. I am a online coach for Beachbody. Let's Build Together challenges happening, fitness challenges happening this month. If you're interested in some fun and exciting workouts, nutrition tips, overall fitness advice, hit me up. Let's get things going. Going to discuss boxing over the last 2 weeks. Again, we were not with you last week, so we're going to talk about some of the fights that took place, not this past weekend, but the weekend prior. But let's talk about what happened this past weekend that just finished. Going to you, Bo. Let's start in Madison Square Garden. ESPN card featuring Terence Crawford as the headliner against Egidijus Kavaliauskas. I'm probably butchering his name. I apologize for that. Fun fight, Bo. Crawford won by stoppage. I want to say round 7. I want to say, but Kavaliauskas, whatever his name is, the Russian dude. He had his moments in there, Bo, particularly in round 2, where early in the fight, I'll say, he was able to land with right hands in particular on the chin of Crawford. The second round, I felt should have been a knockdown where he, in my opinion, stung Crawford. Crawford fell down a few punches afterwards, but Crawford is known for his mean streak. And after that moment, he seemed to fight mad. The thing about him, Bo, he reminds me of one of your favorite fighters, Marvin Hagler, not in terms of style and demeanor. To me, he's the closest fighter I've seen to a prime Marvin Hagler. Skill-wise, can switch from southpaw to orthodox, and he got that mean streak that you saw in the Marvelous one. He slowly broke down Kavaliauskas' body and headshots ultimately stopped him. Your reaction to what you saw, were you surprised that the fight was more exciting than what was thought of, than people predicted heading to the fight?
Yeah, here's the thing, and I think it was the 9th round.
But here's the thing. Excuse me, it's 9th round. I'm sorry.
Crawford he has that old school mentality, which is, if you get me, I got to get you back, right? So he has that mentality, but he has to be careful, because with that, like you said, that mean streak, you also can leave yourself open to be hit. You also can leave yourself open to be counted, and we saw that. Like, Crawford was so intent because he felt like, this dude embarrassed me, right? It kind of reminded me of the great white hype when Grim Reaper Roper got hit by the Irish Conlan. He was like, you trying to embarrass me in front of these people, right? And that's kind of like what it is. So he has to be very careful for that. But what you saw is, I'm not going to, this is no indictment on how bad that I think Egidijus is, but this is the reason why, and we're going to talk about it later. When you fight a certain level of fighter, your ceiling don't go no higher. And then after a while, you get complacent with fighting these same level of guys. So you continue to fighting, lower tier guys. What's going to happen is your ability or your skill set is going to stay the same. Your ceiling not going to go no higher. Now, the thing about Terence Crawford is he know he has that extra gear and he know he has that dog in him. So he know he can turn it up and he know he can put pressure and stuff on the guy. But it was an exciting fight, but when you're the number one pound for pound guy and you fight somebody like Kavaliauskas, Easy Kavaliauskas, yeah, he should have his moments, but it shouldn't have to turn into what it did. Exciting fight. Loved what Crawford did because I always like to see a guy with dog in him. The guy he fighting, the challenger, wasn't backing down neither because even after Crawford was getting on him, he wasn't giving up. He was coming back. So moving forward for me, excellent job by Crawford, but at the same time, watch that mean streak because sometimes that can get you in trouble in boxing. We've seen plenty of times where guys get angry and they just be so eager to get you back that they wind up getting themselves hurt and hurt really bad, man.
Sorry, I was on mute there. We just heard from Gail's boyfriend, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Going to you, Gail. We just heard from your boyfriend, Chavez Jr. Going your impressions on what you saw. Were you surprised that Crawford stood so much in the pocket and decided to fight his foe? The fact that he got, in my opinion, he got hurt and should have had a knockdown score against him in that second round. Your reaction to what you saw?
Oh, it's going to be no mercy this week, is there? Just no mercy. Done. Oh my God. I'm a woman. I can take it. You only tease the ones you love. You know what surprised me? Not that he was in the pocket right in front of Kavaliauskas, but that he stayed in the southpaw stance so long because it wasn't doing him any favors. He finally, when he turned up the heat, when he engaged the mean streak, the pissed off bud, and switched, he was far more effective. Now, he said after the fight, well, that was the game plan. And he said, my trainer. So he didn't say, well, Bomac told me to stay on southpaw. I'm sure they had a little chat after the fight. But it made him vulnerable. And that's when Kavaliauskas tagged him a few times. As far as the knockdown, initially when I watched it live, I saw a knockdown. Watching again, it was a close call, much closer than I originally thought. Bud had a pretty good clinch going. It didn't look like he was going down. And I don't know if there was a tangle of feet, if Kavaliauskas shoved him a little bit. He stumbled across his feet. The drop to the knee was not as clear cut as I would like to see it. I think people can agree to disagree on that. In the end, thank God, it didn't have any bearing on the outcome of the fight. So it's just an academic exercise. But I'm not 100% sure there was a knockdown. But no question, Crawford got buzzed. But you know what? What a champion does when they make a mistake, and everybody makes mistakes in boxing. Some pay a really big price. In Crawford's case, it was just, okay, my bad. Yep, can't need to rethink this a little bit. And the good ones adjust. And that's exactly what he did. And once he did that, got into his groove, and, pissed off Bud comes out. Don't make Bud mad. Or you saw what happened. He took care of business.
For those who don't know, backstory here on why I said Gail's boyfriend Julio Cesar Chavez. If you're a regular listener, But for those who are new, Chavez Jr. is probably the fighter that Gail loathes, dislikes the most. Infamous for not being a fan of her, and she's had quite a few rants about one Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., which is certainly understandable given uh, how he can perform in the ring negatively and how he conducts himself outside the ring. So, because of that, sometimes we do a little playful trolling here, and we're just basically messing with Gail, given that Chavez Jr. he is fighting this weekend.
Listeners, it's high quality hate. What can I say? High quality hate.
I'll go to you, Jacob. Your observation on Crawford's win over Kavaliauskas.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to Bo's earlier point, I agree with him in the sense that still sharpens still. And what Top Rank is able to give Crawford to basically feed off, isn't the highest quality or highest caliber of fighters or who he should be fighting. But again, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously promotional and different things that are kind of making that harder than it should be, or than we want. But the guy was undefeated. The guy, he did present a good challenge, I think, in his style to Crawford. Crawford was eventually able to figure him out and, do the right things, like switching back to orthodox and starting to land his combinations and breaking down. I'm just going to call him, I guess, EJ, right, or EK right now. But I mean, EK doesn't have anything to hang his hat about. He took Bud. Most people have him up at least in the top 2 of a pound for pound, and he's a champion. And he took him 9 rounds, and he caught him a few times. But I think Andre Ward, I thought, had some very great observations about Crawford, in the sense that Crawford, he doesn't like to obviously get hit, and he sees that as like almost like a sign of disrespect. Like if you can catch him or you can hit him, and in this case, I do think he got buzzed, even though he said he didn't. I think he got buzzed a few times, or he got caught a few times, and I thought that that pissed him off, and of course that fuels him, and it goes back to that mean streak we were talking about. But he's kind of stubborn in that way, where he will put himself into harm's way without, he doesn't really need to. He could have just boxed and slowly broke him down. But he wanted to kind of like prove a point, like, I could stand and bang with this guy. I'm not going to let him, take me out. And he took some, unnecessary shots. So, that's kind of his mentality. And it could get him into trouble, later on if he's not smart. But I think he will adjust. I think he's going to learn. I think this is a good fight for him to learn a lot from, because it was some adversity there. And I agree with Gail. I don't think it was a clear knockdown. I think there was a little, I think he was buzzed, but he was kind of holding, and I think there was kind of a little bit of a shove, to put him down. So, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. He ended up dropping EK twice and finishing him off in the 9th round. So I mean, doesn't have to be any controversy with the cards or anything like that.
Shout out to DS Kennels 210 for listening to the show live. Shout out to him. He says that good comparison here. He says Crawford, he's the meanest boxer he's seen since Edwin Valero, and kind of to piggyback off of what we had to say about Gale and Chavez Jr. He had a question, tongue in cheek, who's more professional, Chavez Jr. or Luis Nery? That's a hard one. Both of them continually miss weight.
Chavez Jr.
Yeah.
Why you say that?
Jr.
Yeah.
Because he has been consistent in wasting everything. He's been consistent.
And one of the reasons I've got a real bone to pick with him is how much he has disrespected a lot of people who've tried to help him along the way. He's blown through trainers. Everybody who's been around very long as a fan has seen the infamous 2012 HBO 24/7 series where he disrespects the time and effort of Freddie Roach, which, there's a lot of people in the sport who'd love to train with a trainer of that caliber and that pull. Chavez Jr. basically busted his chops and wasted his time. And what makes me nuts?
You mean the same Chavez Jr. who doing that 24/7 special? He thought shadow boxing in his living room in his drawers that he thought that counted for training.
His pink panties. Yeah. Eating trick cereal or whatever the hell was like.
I was just going to say eating trick cereal at night, which is what weed smokers do.
Yeah, something like that. And let's talk about the fact he was denied a license, rightfully so, by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. He has a hearing. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to just stop.
Oh, you can just basically go. You can just basically go to how he just couldn't keep his mouth shut and about Al Heyman and posting up checks and all that stuff. Where just as a fighter, you just don't do.
He's what my father would have called a punk. He's a punk. He has been trading on his father's good name. His father has begged multiple people to give him a second chance, including Freddie Roach. And only out of respect to his father have they dealt with him. He's had an infamous No Mas event for which fans pelted him with cups of beer, and he deserved every drop that smacked him. And shall I continue? And the real shame of it is he has the athletic DNA to be successful. He does have gifts. He does have skills. The problem is he doesn't train them. He has zero discipline, and here we are. But yet again, he gets barred from having a fight in Nevada, and his promoter just happens to get a great offer and decides to move it to Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. So he's got a hearing, however, on Wednesday, and he may not be cleared to fight anyway. Cue the understudy, Gabriel Rosado, who's already on the undercard, who is teed up, ready to go. He's sort of like the runner-up to Miss America. If you cannot fulfill your duties, your understudy on the undercard will step in for you. And I hope he gets to do it because it's a better fight anyway.
Good point. Good comment here from Diaz Kennels. Someone pointed out how it goes to show how good of a job top ranked matchmaking really is, that Chavez is seen largely as a wasted talent when in the beginning of his career he was seen as a no talent and a last name. So yeah.
Yep.
Let's go back to the Crawford fight, and I don't want to discuss I don't want to talk about the fight itself. Instead, I want to transition into some comments that Timothy Bradley made after the fight, immediately after the fight, where there was basically the ESPN crew was basically doing a wrap up, and Bradley, let's just call it what it is, let the emotions get the best of him, got into his feelings a bit, and when the topic came to Crawford, who he should fight next, he went on a rant. Bradley did, said, paraphrasing, that the only real men he sees over at PBC is Wilder, and the rest of the welterweights over there don't want any piece of Bud. Basically accused them of being chicken. Now, Terence Crawford, who's still in recovery from his automobile accident.
You mean Errol Spence?
Errol Spence, excuse me. Posted on Snapchat, said some highly inflammatory things about Bradley in response. I'll just say it here, just because it's what he said. Called him a coon. Others within the boxing realm, Kevin Cunningham, he said some not so nice things about him. Your reaction to what Bradley had to say, as well as the response to Bradley's rant. I'll start with you, Jacob.
So, I mean, I think, Bradley is becoming kind of like one of those personalities. I think he's trying to transition. Obviously, he's not going to fight again. And, he's getting paid by, ESPN. And, I think he's just going that company man route of, hyping up his fighters or the fighters that he's going to, be aligned with in the sense of, um, Top Rank, because they have that deal with ESPN and what have you. But, I mean, you can see Ward kind of chuckling a little bit, because I think he's the better of the two commentators. I think he's just more calm and he says it better than Bradley. Bradley's very emotional. Bradley just kind of goes off the cuff. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's a new Teddy Atlas, but he's kind of filling that role, that dynamic that they have of the 3 or 4 guys that they have, kind of commentating on the fights. But what I will say is that I think there is some truth to what he's saying in regards to some of these fighters making excuses, because what I can point to specifically with Spence is that when he was coming up, when he wasn't a champion, where he was coming up, he was calling out everybody and just, saying, hey, fight me, fight me, fight me. And it seems like now that he's been able to, unify the division and get the belts, he's not the call out guy anymore. And he's starting to say things like, I want to fight this guy next, or I want to fight this guy next. And he knows what everybody wants to see. And Crawford, they've had a couple interactions where, whether it be at a gym or at a at the fight or whatever, and they talk and they kind of jab back and forth at each other, and you can see it on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. And it's kind of like give the fans what they want. And we know that it's possible that even promotion companies as polar opposite as the PBC and Top Rank are, they can work together. I mean, we've had a couple cross promotion fights this year. We're gonna have a cross promotion fight in February with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. So it's possible. And really, what this shows, I think, everybody, is that if the fighters want the fight, they can make the fight happen. The money's there, the demand is there. They can make it happen. So that's where it gets into that kind of gray area. And again, it must be frustrating for Crawford and for him not to be able to fight the other champions because supposedly they don't want to fight him. I'm just gonna air quote that, but that's what it seems to look like, because it seems like he's willing to do it. And hopefully we'll get the fights that we want to see when they're in their prime, not when when they're towards the end of their career, and then it doesn't have the same pop as it did when we wanted to see them. But I mean, that's been something that's plagued boxing for a long time.
I'll go to you, Bo. Let me say for the record that Bradley, is Bradley a coon, a quote unquote coon? In my opinion, no. However, that doesn't mean that Bradley is not above criticism here. Personally, I don't think that Spence in particular is afraid to fight Crawford. Bradley is also wrong calling out PBC fighters in general, broad brushing PBC, because what are we hearing in the aftermath? There's early discussions and early rumors about Crawford potentially fighting Sean Porter, who's a PBC fighter. So for Bradley to go there, he was out of pocket.
Mike, wouldn't that make his case though? So let's say they do make the Porter Crawford fight. Wouldn't that kind of make Bradley's case or make the case that Errol Spence? So you have a PBC fighter, they make the fight, and then they fight. Then you can say, okay, well, he's a PBC fighter. Why can't you make the Spence fight?
In this case, no, because what Bradley did, he called out all PBC. He generalized in that rant.
I'm not defending Bradley. I think the way he went about it was not the right way to go about it. But like I said, I think he's just trying to be a company guy and try to hype things up, and he's playing into that personality, that dynamic that they have. But my point is that if they are able to make that fight, which is something that Crawford has said a long time, is that, you know, if the fighters want to fight, we can make it happen. You know, the promotions can come together and make it happen. So if they make that Sean Porter fight, you know, I think it kind of puts a spotlight on Spence, because it'll be like, okay, well, he's fighting a PBC guy, so that can't be the excuse. And he has a belt, and that can't be the excuse either. Not
necessarily, because you're making the Porter fight out of desperation.
Right. And especially when you given the context that Spence right now is still in recovery. I don't get where the rant is coming from. And we have to keep in mind now, Spence has 2 belts. Crawford has 1. Spence, in terms of gait and numbers, is equal to Crawford. So he's acting a bit diva-ish here. He's acting like an A-side fighter, but that doesn't mean ultimately at the end of the day that if they were to really get down, really get serious about negotiations, assuming Spence comes back and all right, that he would just all of a sudden avoid the fight. I just don't see that. Your thoughts, Bob?
Okay, well, look, let's make something clear. Everybody knows how I feel about Timothy. I call him Timothy sadly. Here's the thing. Does he have a point what he's saying about them playing keep away? Yeah, he does. But it's the same thing that I saw Top Rank do to fighters. Timothy Bradley was around and, you know, didn't fight Floyd Mayweather, didn't fight Kell Brook, didn't fight Amir Khan. There's a lot
he
of
didn't fight Errol Spence.
Well, yeah, and his argument to that is, oh, I accepted the Pacquiao fight, but the Pacquiao fight was in April. You weren't ordered to fight Spence until December. And in December, that same month of December, Terence Crawford fought John Molina Jr., who was a PBC fighter. Then after that, fought Felix Diaz, who was a PBC fighter. Here's the reality, though, and this is what my case is, and I've stood on this. If they wanted to let Errol Spence gobble up all the 3 belts, the same thing that Anthony Joshua got to do before looking to fight Terence Crawford, I don't have a problem with that. My problem with Timothy Bradley being upset is I just saw Top Rank screw Devin Haney out of a fight with Vasily Lomachenko. And I didn't hear him say anything. I'm looking at the light heavyweight division, and they're doing the same thing to Dimitri Bivol. And I didn't hear Timothy Bradley go off about that. I saw DAZN do the same thing to Charlo, and I didn't hear nothing about that. So the point is, this is something that happens in boxing all the time. But also, let's remember something, because I wrote this article. Bob Arum revealed that when talking to Heyman to make Wilder and Fury 2, they had already said that Spence and Crawford was going to happen in 2020. That was a definite. Okay. And then on top of that, right after Spence and Kenny Porter did an interview, and he said, we're willing to fight Terence Crawford. So for him to call people, I said, oh, whoa, wait a minute, man. And one more thing that he said that resonated with me was he said, come on over, as in come on over to ESPN. No, they don't have to come over to ESPN because they have their own platform. So again, I'm not mad at what he said, because I agree nobody should have a monopoly on a division. But when you look at some of the division that Top Rank has a monopoly on, or DAZN have a monopoly on, they're leaving people out in the cold too. And if you can make as much money in making in-house fights before looking outside, because remind you, Crawford, when Manny Pacquiao was with Top Rank, Freddie Roach was like, no, I'm not letting him fight Crawford. So that was the big fight that Crawford didn't get. I didn't hear Timothy Bradley go off on Manny Pacquiao for not fighting Crawford. You know? So I get what he's saying, right? And on top of that, I'm not cool with the way PBC is trying to not to acknowledge the WBO belt. They did it to Terence Crawford. They did it to Billy Joe Saunders. I'm not cool with that.
Yeah, okay? PBC is not absolved from criticism either, because when they had Spence Porter and they didn't even mention Crawford as a champion, That was nonsense. That was petty on their part. That was ridiculous.
That was very petty. They had Manny Pacquiao, who was the regular champion, up there instead of Terence Crawford, and the same thing at 168 they had Canelo up there, who's the regular champion, not Billy Joe Saunders. So they have a personal vendetta against the WBO, which I don't know why. But listen, look. I don't agree with what Earl Spence did. I really don't. I really don't agree with what Earl Spence did. That if you got a problem, you go talk to that guy. I don't agree with that, right? But let's keep it clear. My issue is the double standard. The same people that said that Charlo needs to sign with DAZN if he wants to get in the mix with those fights. Okay, when Terence Crawford re-signed with Top Rank, he already knew how hard it was going to be to make those fights. The fights was hard for him to make before he re-signed. And if they have all the fighters, just like we see what's going on with Top Rank, but they're going to make as much money as they can first in-house before they look out. That has been a part of the boxing since the inception. There's a lot of fights I would have loved to have seen. I would have loved to have seen Mike Tyson and Ray Mercer. I would have loved to have seen Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis. I would have loved to have seen Riddick Bowe and Chris Bird. I would love to have seen Lennox Lewis and Chris Bird. There's a lot of fights I would have loved to have seen, but they didn't happen. At the end of the day, when Crawford said, the fighters can make the fight too. Yes and no, because the promoters also are the ones who will say, well, because the promoters will go to you and they'll say, hold on, wait a minute. Let's, hold the fight off. We'll make a lot of money. We saw this for Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao. We saw the same thing with Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, right? Was Timothy Bradley out of bounds? Yes. Part of what he said was out of bounds only because he is a fighter. Do I have a problem with what he's saying? No. Was some of the things he said correct? Abso-freaking-lutely. Okay. But my problem with Bradley is the fact that we're seeing this happening to Devin Haney, Charlo, and Dimitri Bivol, and you're not saying anything. That's my only issue with Timothy Bradley. And as far as fighting, him looking to fight Sean Porter, to Jacob's point, well, if they make the fight, it's out of desperation, but go ahead on and make the fight, because if you make that fight, it shows, no, wait a minute, we don't have a problem fighting him, but we also want to get paid, because over here at PBC, we're getting paid. So if you want us to come over here to Top Rank, because Bradley said, come on over here, right? So that means you want us to come to ESPN, because apparently maybe Terence Crawford got something going on or whatever. I don't know. But if you want us to come over there, then you're going to have to pay. We just saw Mikey Garcia get a boatload of money to fight Jesse Vargas. Say, okay, you want me to fight him over there? You got to pay me. And that's what it is. Okay, you want me to fight over there? You got to pay me. Behind the scenes, we all know these guys talk. They know when stuff's going to happen. That's why I don't really get upset about it. I don't buy too much into it. But at the end of the day, when you are the fighter and you have been okay with some of the moves that you made, when you've been okay when it's happened, when you was there, I don't really expect to hear you say anything. But at the end of the day, let's accept one factor. This has been a part of boxing for a very long time. It didn't just start with PBC. Does it need to stop? I'll be the first one to say, yes, it does. But when you watching other organizations and making their own in-house fights, you can't point to PBC and you can't say they're not willing to work with other promoters, because yes, they are willing to work with other promoters. Anthony Joshua fought 4 PBC fighters. He fought 4 of them. Okay, we actually witnessed that Terence Crawford fought 2 or 3 of them. Canelo Alvarez has fought some, right? So we know that, yeah, to your point, Jacob, yes, they make the fights they want to make, but the ones that's a lot of money involved, no, they're going to hold them off until that pot gets right, and then they're going to make that fight.
I'm going to read some comments here in the chat in the public YouTube chat shortly, because it's getting hot and heavy there. But before that, I want to hear Gail's thoughts on the whole dust up with Bradley and what he said about PBC welterweights and the reaction to what Bradley had to say.
Well, generally, when people react that strongly, it's because you poked them somewhere that's tender. They're sensitive to it. He's not wrong. He wasn't wrong at all. And just because he hasn't called out other promoters for their similar issues, well, he's not broadcasting a Dimitri Bivol fight. So he's not involved. Crawford's right there in front of him. One of the best fighters in the world. who's struggling to get quality opponents. Why wouldn't you be frustrated about that? And he's got a little bit of skin in it because that was his division. The truth is, we've seen it, and Bo, you actually made the case for me. When the guys want to make fights, they turn to their promoters and say, make the fight. You know, I believe it was a comment I heard Crawford himself make prior to the fight earlier in the week during one of his interviews, you know, talking about, well, you know, somebody has to cross, there's a street in between you. You're on either sides of the street. Well, cross the street. You know, it's not rocket science, everybody. Cross the street. The only part that's difficult is everybody dividing up the money. And that's usually what happens in boxing. So for Bradley to get frustrated and call him out by name, well, at least he was very clear about who he was talking about. He didn't play games with it. He named names. He was willing to own it. I'm fine with that. If it made some people mad who were the receiving end, I get why they might not like it, but it didn't mean Bradley was wrong to do it.
I'm going to read some comments here in the chat. Sean says that why make a Porter? Why Crawford? Why make a fight with Porter? He just lost. He says that the PBC has stopped fights from happening. Has stopped fights from happening to make. Has stopped in fights from happening when it comes to in-house fighters. Excuse me. And he notes Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell. My only retort to that would be, was that PBC or was that Leo Santa Cruz? Because Santa Cruz has had a history of whenever there's top opposition in his division, he avoids and moves up. That would be my only retort to that. He says that Haney didn't get screwed by Top Rank. He is the name that Lopez and Tank are. My only response would be that he was mandated to fight Loma. Fight should have happened. He was mandated. He was mandated to fight him. He was in position. He was in position to be the next guy up. The fight didn't happen. DSK Kennel says, do you feel that if the PBC pulls a Zuffa and creates their own belt and completely shuts out non-PBC fighters, do you feel that PBC will pull a Zuffa and create their own belt and completely shut out non-PBC fighters? Fox executives have already hinted at PBC belts coming soon.
That won't work though, because those belts won't have any status. You know, the four major belts have the status to them. So if you win a PBC belt, that doesn't mean anything as if you win a WBC or WBO or whatever.
It's not something that's needed in boxing. Let me say that. It's not something that's needed in boxing. If PBC do something like that, that's stupid. It's not something that's needed in boxing. It does nothing but create more confusion. So no,
But it wouldn't be a sanctioning body. It would just be a belt. It would just be their belt for their promotion. So it wouldn't hold any weight. It wouldn't be like they would have rankings and things like that. It would just be within their own organization. So it would do zero.
Mm-hmm. But I want to respond to something that Gail said. Yeah, I said to Gail, but I also said that those guys will go to make the fight, and you'll get the promoters that'll say, well, hold on, we're going to make that fight. We're not looking to make it right now. We have something else lined up for you. We have this program going for you. I remember when, what's his name? They tried that with oh damn, I lost my train of thought. But I'm not saying that they can't go and say make the fight. They probably have gone and said make the fight, because listen, I've heard Earl Spence completely change his tone when it comes to Crawford, and I've heard Crawford sometimes do the same thing when it comes to Earl. And that tells me, they're not afraid to fight each other, because I've heard Terence Crawford interviews say that, the guys don't fight me because it's business. So that tells me, you get it, you understand it. The fight will happen when it happens. But I've also seen promoters say, we have a plan for you right now. So we're not looking at that right now. That's down the road. And some fighters accept it. Some fighters speak out against it, like Canelo did when Edeslani Lauder ran up on him. So I'm not saying Bradley's wrong. I agree with him, but my problem though is, and I know what you're saying, that he wasn't talking that fight, but if you're going to go off and have an issue about a guy being frozen out, just be consistent about it. Now, maybe that applies to Bradley, maybe it doesn't. It's just that be consistent about it. And when you were because we just saw Top Rank, we just saw him do this to Devin Haney. They went and had Lomachenko made franchise champion and went off. Now they looking to fight Lopez. I'm not mad about that because, hey, that's business. But if you're going to say that, then make sure you're consistent about, yeah, we did it too. But I still want to see somebody fight my boy.
Couple more comments here in the chat. I'm going to combine a comment and a question to you guys. Sean says there's a whole new crop of potential 147-pound fighters for Bud to fight that's not PBC, so that's a good thing. And DSK asked, and I'm going to ask everyone here on the panel, any chance of Ramirez at 140, Josh Taylor or Prograis move up to 147 to fight in 2020? And how soon before any of them would face Crawford?
Jose Ramirez was already targeted for that. He talked about that in the interview, but he said he would like to try to, become undisputed in division first. But if that doesn't happen, he can't get that, then he moves up. He said he wouldn't have a problem with fighting Crawford, and he would actually be in line to fight Crawford, being a WBO champion. And he get first dibs at him. I like that. I like that. I like that. Listen, 140 period though. Any of them dudes that go up to 140 just excites 147 pounds period. And I would actually like to see that because yeah, you're right. It would be nice to get fresh blood in there, which would kind of make these people be like, all right, man, we got to stop the bullshit.
And I'll go to
there's an issue though. The only issue I see though is that when you have a guy that wants to be undisputed, and then even if you get new blood that's not PBC, but they're holding the belts, then it becomes an impossible journey. You can maybe get some important fights, but you're just going to be playing with one of the belts. If you want to be unified, undisputed unified champion, unfortunately the belts are not all in the same place. I mean, in some cases, they're close to being in the same place, but like welterweight, like we were just talking about, they have 3 belts over there, 1 belt over here, light heavyweight and so forth. So it's, it depends on what the guy actually wants. Yeah, but I mean, it all goes back to legacy too, though. I really think that the belts don't have as much weight to me as a fan as the kind of fights that these guys get and how they perform in those fights. Like, if they can build up a good resume, even if they lose, every now and then, like someone like Marquez or something like that, who lost some fights, but he's going to go down as a legend. I mean, he's a legend. Yeah, but that's not going to, that doesn't make any difference for Ramirez. He's a top ranked fighter. So that's a moot point. Honestly, I think who we're going to see step up and it'd be good for him is Prograis. He's a free agent. He's got to find something to do. So that's a possibility for him. I think that's more likely to happen than anything other than a potential fight with Porter because he wants it. Problem is that Crawford and Porter have said in the past they wouldn't fight each other because they're good friends. But when it comes to business, they're all about business. And Porter is entertaining, and they know that too. So he's a draw. There is a next wave coming up, and the problem is I don't think they're going to arrive at the gate fast enough to satisfy.
Yeah, if we're talking the fighters like Virgil Ortiz.
Virgil Ortiz is the first one that comes
the other fighter on the Golden Boy stable, the other welterweight we talked about
Rashidi Ellis.
Rashidi Ellis.
That is
Boots Ennis, who's fighting on Showtime. I like him a lot. I think he's a very talented prospect.
I would hate to
they're up and coming. You're right, Gil, but yeah, it's going to be at least 2 years, in my opinion, before they're ready for the likes of Bud.
I can tell you Regis Prograis doing. He in the gym.
Yeah,
I talked to him. Yeah, he's in the gym. He's pissed. He's angry.
and that's what makes this an interesting fight and a good one. And if he takes that fight and moves up and he loses, no harm done. Everyone will give him credit for giving it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I really see no downside even in a loss for him.
See, and Gail, listen, you hitting on something really close to home with me. People have this thing because you take an L that, I guess you don't deserve something. Listen, if you go in the ring, a guy like Sean Porter goes in there, loses a close fight, a fight that came down to him being knocked down in one round, right? That doesn't devalue Sean Porter to me, right? Now, Andy Ruiz, yeah, your ass is devalued. I don't want to see you again.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
You're devalued.
You're absolutely right. It's all about the performance. The best paid athlete in the world right now, never mind boxing, has a loss on his record. Remember that, everybody? And that fight with Floyd Mayweather taught Canelo Alvarez a hell of a lot that he uses today. That L was one of the best things that ever happened to him. So
that goes back.
A bad excuse for anybody to say that's the reason to avoid a fight.
And man, again, I've always said this: when Andre Ward was plugging at Golovkin, he should have took that fight, because even if you take a loss, you would have fought the best fighter in the world and walked away learning something when you do that, right? Just like you mentioned Canelo Alvarez did. But that's my point is, if you give a valiant effort, and if you watch old school boxing, a lot of guys, you would see a lot of guys that had lost. You're like, man, he's fighting another top guy. Yes, because look at Derek Chisora. You look at this, he's the elder statesman of boxing, fought damn near everybody, but he gives a great effort. That's why you can put him in the ring and you want to see him, because you're like, man, this dude's gonna get in. He gives a great effort. I remember Ross Purity was another guy, bunch of losses, but if you put him in the ring, he was a tough, competitive dude. You wasn't just gonna run over Ross Purity. He may mess around and beat you, right? So boxing has always had those crop of dudes that were just tough fights to have. Yes, they'll have losses, but they wasn't getting blown away, so they stock value never dropped. And I don't understand, how did we get there in this age where if you take a loss, people feel like your stock value dropped? And I don't get that. If you give a great performance and you lose, controversial, whatever, your value shouldn't drop. Now, if you go in there and you lay an egg, yeah, your value drops. So I don't understand how we got like that. And boxing never used to be like that to me, man.
Well, you know what? You know how we got like that.
The Floyd era.
You know how we got like that, because of a certain fighter who switched his personality from pretty boy to money, and
Chavez?
used the fact. No.
Chavez, you talking about Chavez? Chavez went from a clean cut dude to a weed smoker. That's what love from a redhead to do to you.
Yeah, you should all be lucky enough to get some of that.
the other guy who switched his moniker from pretty boy to money, had a personality change, and used the fact that he was undefeated as part of his shtick, as part of his hype, and as a result, combined with new age boxing fans who seem to think that undefeated means any and everything, and act like if you suffer an L, that's the end of your career. That's what happened.
I mean, you know what? Yeah, it's true. But the funny thing about that, though, there was guys that was taking L's that was still getting fights, because, well, listen, prior to that, Floyd did run through a nice little gauntlet. But if you look at it, he fought Robert De Ghost Guerrero. Robert De Ghost Guerrero had L's on his opponent. He fought Marcus Maidana. Marcus Maidana had L's on his resume. So I mean, you're right. He kind of like, gave that fame, but if you look at the guys he was fighting, them guys had L's. So I don't know, man. Maybe because I remember this sport for so long that taking an L never diminished you. It really bothers me when today's fans can't tell the difference between when someone is playing something up and when someone actually has lost value.
Indeed, indeed. Let's move on to talk about some other fights here. Look, uh, I wrote about this fight, previewed this fight for Three Kings, Richard Commey and Teofimo Lopez. As on point as I was about Josh Taylor and his win over Progress, I was dead damn wrong about this fight, as I predicted that Commey would win. I predicted he would stop Lopez. Uh, Egg on my face right now. I'm sitting here in the cut behind the camera, eating a big heaping plate of humble pie, as Lopez uh, could possibly have stolen the show on the undercard of Crawford and Kavaliauskas, as he stopped Commey in 2 rounds to win the IBF World Lightweight belt. I'll go to you, Gail. He won Lopez. Here's the asterisk, and tell me if I'm wrong. Yes, he won, and yes, he won in sensational fashion. But if you really observe the fight, was this fight really a case of Lopez's right hand landing before Commey's? Because they threw simultaneous right hands, and the fact is that Lopez's right hand just seemed to land, and once he hurt him, he pounced on him and finished him. So was it sensational overall win, or was it just he just happened to land first?
Well, you just don't happen to land first. You are either a fast
I think I think we might have lost connection with Gail. I'll go to you, Jacob, because she's on mute right now. I'll pose the same question to you, Jacob. Sensational win, or was this the product of him just happened to land in that right hand before Commey did?
I mean, I think I I see your point, but again, that's part of boxing, though. You know, if you're throwing, if you have speed and you're throwing, and your punch is going to get there faster than the other guys, or you find your spot and you land first, then that's on you for for doing that. So I think in this case here, I had picked Commey also to win the fight. Um, I thought that the chances though that Commey, because he does get hit a lot, or he is susceptible to getting hit, and he can sometimes just trade and bang, um, because he believes in his power so much, and he does have power in both hands. But I think he just he got caught. I mean, it was early. It was only the second round of the fight, and hats off to Lopez for finding that opening and putting him away. I thought, as I talked to you earlier, I thought Commey could have done himself more favors though in the fight, by first of all not getting up so quick, and then when Lopez came in for the kill, instead of trying to like punch his way out or just covering up, maybe try to hold or take a knee to try to like get out of the round. I know there was a lot of time left in the round because it was early in the round that he got caught, but I don't. He didn't do what I think they teach boxers to do, which is veteran tactics to hopefully survive the round. You get that minute break in between, and hopefully you can make a comeback. Because it was so early in the fight. But again, I can't take anything away from Lopez. I mean, he came off a not so great performance. He's had a lot of struggles within his own family and whatnot, and he came out and he got the win. So I can't take anything away from him.
I'll go to you, Bo. Your thoughts on the fight. Um, am I wrong in my assessment here, or should I give more credit to Lopez and what he did, or your reaction?
Man, I hate we lost Gail. You know,
She's working to. She had having issues with her laptop. She
Yeah.
should be back shortly.
You know, boxing has always been a game of skill and who gets there first. Who gets to you in the in between that short distance at the quickest time. And although I see what you're saying, Mike, but it was a combination of both. It was a combination of Lopez punch landing first, and it was a combination of Richard Commey being hurt. Normally your weakest point in a boxing match is you got two weakest points in a boxing match where you can severely be hurt by a punch that probably wouldn't hurt you, right? One is the punch that you don't see, and two is while you're throwing. You can get hit while you're throwing, or the punch that you don't see, and they can severely hurt you. And sometimes you get hit in the right place. There are three spots you can get hit in boxing: the temple, the earlobe right along the jawline, and the kidney. You can have a 26% knockout ratio. You get hit in either one of them spots, it's gonna wobble the legs. So if a guy who has power hit you in one of them spots, it's really gonna wobble your legs. So what I saw from Teofimo Lopez was a guy who seized the moment in making a statement, because let's be honest here, if Teofimo Lopez was to have fight Richard Commey and he had a tough time, people would be saying, nope, don't want to see him fight Loma. Nope, not ready, don't want to see it. By him having a spectacular performance, even if you believe Loma's gonna win, you still at least is interested in seeing it. Why? Because he's coming off of a devastating knockout. Let's see what he can do in his next performance. See, so if he'd have got in there and he struggled, we all would be like, no, man, I don't want to see that. He barely won and he eked out this, because you have to understand, we as guys who know boxing know who Richard Commey is, but regular people don't know who Richard Commey is. So they would be like, yo, he struggled against that guy? He must not be that good. See, so I'm glad he had the performance he had. I'm glad he got in there and showed out, because by him doing it, Lomachenko came in the ring. Now you're very interested in seeing that fight. I still think that Lomachenko beats him. I think Lomachenko beats all of them. Hell, I think Lomachenko beats Devin Haney, even though I was arguing with somebody that told me the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But I still think Lomachenko beats Devin Haney. But I just like the performance that Lopez gave. It makes it intriguing to see it, because it's a young lion that's really full of confidence, coming off a great performance, so he's at an all-time high. I don't think that fight's going to be next. Bob Arum is old school. He likes to have his guys make a title defense so you can be considered a legit champion, because I'm one of them. I'm old school. If you win a title and you don't have a successful title defense, I don't consider you to be a real champion. And Bob is old school like that. He wants you to have a title defense. So I look for Lopez to have a title defense. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Lopez and Lomachenko fight on the same card to build up for the next fight. But I like what I saw, man. I think it was good for him, and I actually think it was good for the build up for that match.
Follow-up question. You just said that you think there's going to be a fight in the interim between the two, because Lomachenko, he was, as you said, was at ringside and interviewing him after, and he mentioned the fight happening in April. How long do you think it will be before we see those two in the ring, especially when you consider that Teofimo, young guy, he's only, 21, 22 years old, and there's already word that he's having issues making 135 and will probably move up to 140 sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I that's the only reason why I think they may make that fight next. That's why I said they might. I think that they may make it next because of that reason. Because Teofimo Lopez has hinted before that, hey man, listen, if I'm not gonna get Lomachenko, I'll just move up, and he's hinted that before. So, if he goes to 140 though, man, especially with the dogs that's there still right now. Josh Taylor, I could see him maybe fighting Jose Ramirez. Maybe they'll probably get him in there with Jose Ramirez. But oh man, Regis Prograde, Josh Taylor. Oh man, wow, that's a Maurice Hooker. He had already
him and Progress. I would love to see that fight.
Yeah, Jose Zepeda is even a good fight. Ivan Baranki is still there. The only Lewis Richton, the only guys I wouldn't care to see him fight is that goddamn Rance Bartholomew.
That's your boy. What's wrong with him?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm American.
You see how he lying on here. You see how your boy Chavez, how your boyfriend Chavez Jr. is lying on here, Gail. Since you're back, your thoughts on Lopez stunning win over Richard Commey.
Yeah, I pardon me for technology so rudely interrupting me. There was no luck involved. You know, Lopez is a real true talent. He showed us that on Saturday. I say, believe your eyes. He's got the hand speed, the power, and the know-how to deliver a punch like that in the second round against a guy who's extremely durable, whose losses on his record were very close and disputed by a lot of people. And he just cut through him and took care of business and barely cracked a sweat doing it in what a lot of us thought would be a good competitive fight. Remember, a lot of smart, knowledgeable people who watch boxing thought Commey might win. We're sitting here today thinking, oh, I mean, we can hardly believe now on the other side of it that we could have ever thought such a thing. He's got such a promising future. Let's hope some of the family drama he's involved with does not derail him. It seems, though, like he's the kind of guy with enough mental focus to shut that stuff out and get in the ring and do what he needs to do. And sometimes what happens is the ring is where a guy like Lopez can go to escape all the drama outside the ring. The ring becomes his safe spot, the place he likes to go, he wants to go. And that is not a bad thing for the rest of his career.
I'm going to read some. Go ahead, Bo.
I was just saying also, Gail, one thing that Lopez said that actually helped him grow up rather quickly was, Lopez got married. So he's a family.
He did. Of course.
He said that helped him. That really helped.
Part of the family drama. It split up his extended family. And, for now, Bo, that's going to be fine. When they start having children, it's going to become a bigger issue. So we'll see what happens. I hope.
So are you saying that a woman can ruin a man?
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, well, it seems to me the person on the wrong side of this is Teofimo's mother and the rest of the family outside of Dad, who've decided to turn their back on him in this marriage for whatever reason. We could get into a long discussion of this. It has nothing to do with boxing. I do not understand why families do this. But
I think that she's a gold digger or something like that. That's that's their claim. Because didn't his mom used to do his nutrition and his family was very involved in what his boxing life.
Yeah, well, a lot of mothers don't like it when a daughter-in-law comes along and suddenly they aren't number one anymore. But that's not their job till the grave. Sorry. And they all need to learn their place. He needs to dictate where their place is, and they need to listen to him. If they've decided it's our way or the highway and they cut him off of the family, and that is a very harsh way to do things. Life is too short, but we could get into all of that. But I am heartened by seeing how he seems to be able to shut that all off and leave it behind and get in the ring, because I do think the ring is where he doesn't need to think about that. In the ring, there are only a few things he's absolutely got to pay attention to, and it means that all his problems are left behind. If the ring is a safe space, is a happy place for Teofimo Lopez, it's going to be a very happy place for the rest of us as his fans.
It's interesting that this has happened twice, though. You have the Teofimo Lopez, and then what's his name, Stevenson, with the guy he just fought. That whole family thing with
the Gonzalez family, but they seem to have smoothed things out at least to the point of they're not in active battle with each other, or at least not a public battle. Let's hope that everybody grows up a little.
Yeah, an ass whooping to do that to you.
Everybody does realize that,
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's holiday season, maybe it's because of some things I've been involved with. Life is too short, everybody, to get into these what turn out to be petty squabbles. 50 years from now, nobody's going to care. Y'all need to get over yourselves and reestablish these relationships. And you know what? If you need outside help to help you move around those things, that's what you need to do.
Comments here. I'm gonna read some more comments. Make sure, for those who are listening to us live on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button. DSK Kennels, he says, in terms of the earlier discussion about losses, in response to what you had to say, Bo, about folks being too critical of fighters who happen to lose, he says taking an L has been looked down on since before Floyd. Maybe goes back to Chavez Sr. era. You got a point there, because through the Taylor fight, Mildred Taylor fight, and even through the Frankie Randall fight, commentators and media made a big point about Chavez's undefeated record. Sean responded by saying it also stops guys from taking on challenges who are too afraid to get beat. It's bad for the sport. Sean said he had Commey winning. Great performance by Lopez. Shout out to MC Royal, who is listening to us live. He says, I know the UFC is a different sport, but I wish boxing fans would adopt the attitude of UFC fans who don't care if their favorite fighter have losses. He says that
no, we don't need to adopt the MMA fans. I'll tell you something about MMA fans. If there's not a knockout, they're booing the fighters, because that's what would happen. Case in point, that card with the what's his name, KSI and whatever, Haney and all them were fighting, and they were booing them because there was a knockout. That's their attitude.
DSK Kennel says that Teofimo Lopez would be food for Jose Ramirez at 140 right now.
I disagree.
You disagree
with that one. I disagree with that one. I disagree. I really disagree. Jose Ramirez's style isn't a style where I look at it and say, oh man, this a guy like Teofimo Lopez would be food for him. So I kind of disagree with that one. I mean, it's an interesting fight and a good fight, but I don't think Teofimo Lopez is food for him.
DSK Kennels also had a question for everybody here on the panel. He says the question is, what do y'all think about Arum recently saying it's getting harder to sell tickets in the U.S., and that's why he's taken his stars overseas like Loma, Ramirez, and others. Anybody want to tackle that question?
Put on better cards. Don't just rely on one fighter or two fighters. You got to build your cards up. Maybe instead of having a lot of cards, you spread them out a little bit more and to build them up, and use your Top Rank has done some good jobs in such as like regional stuff, where like Ramirez, who we just talked about in the Fresno area, and Golden Boy's done it with that one guy that they just let go. And like even with Deontay Wilder and was it Toulouse, Alabama, and Crawford, and so you don't have to, the fights. I mean, I like it because I live in the LA area, so I'd like to go see the fights, but play off where your strengths are. If you have a fighter that's from a certain area, or you have a few fighters from a certain area, you can build that card, and you will get better attendance.
And Arum has also talked about over the past few days leading up to his Crawford's fight against Kavaliauskas, taking Crawford on the road and having him possibly fight in Africa. I'll go to you, Bo and Gail. Your response to DSK Kennel's questions. The only thing I would say is, I hear you, DSK, and I hear what Arum's saying, but the other side, if you think it's so hard to sell tickets in the U.S., why did you sign Inoue and having his first fight here under his first fight with his deal with the deal with Anyway, why are you staging that fight in the U.S.? So, Bo, Gail, you have any response to DSK Kennel's questions about Aram's comments about it getting harder to sell tickets in the U.S.?
Well, let's remember how long Bob Arum has been in the game. So when he says getting harder, does he mean getting harder over the last year, over the last 5 years, 10, 20, 40 years? Yes, it's getting harder to draw people to live sports everywhere for every sport because it's so much more enjoyable for a lot of people to sit and watch at home. You get a lot better view. You don't deal with the headaches, the upcharges, the parking, the this, the that. There are a lot of people, for example, who used to buy tickets to see NFL games who say, well, I like football just as much as I always did, but I'm staying home to watch it. I think boxing has had some of that. We also have a bit of a saturation issue. You know, it does seem in certain markets, there's a fight around the corner. Every time you look, Jacob and I could bankrupt ourselves if we were buying tickets to fights in Southern California or as far as Vegas that are drivable. We would be at a fight every single weekend and sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. So Aram's not wrong. And he sees these huge markets where he can sell lower price tickets, but get a huge amount of people in the seats and make money. Look at Eddie Hearn taking a fight to Saudi Arabia, a fight that was very difficult for a lot of people to be able to watch. He didn't care. He had the money up front. You know, it's going to get to the point where for a lot of sports, people in the seats are almost beside the point. And there's back to the NFL, there's a lot of discussion about the fact that all you really need is just a handful of seats for the hardcore, the luxury boxes, and that's it. Stadiums are going to are in, for the most part in the United States, not getting huge anymore, not getting bigger. They're getting to be smaller. They're getting to be little jewel boxes where you've got most of the money being made in the luxury seats, in the close-up experience. So the model has changed a lot. The revenue streams are coming from a completely different place. And if Aram's, still thinking ticket sales, honestly, it's a bit old school, truthfully. You're better off getting people paying their streaming fees every single month and getting your cut there.
Gail, man, you make a very good point. Here's the thing, and you hit the nail on the head. It is getting hard, period, across the board because of technology and everybody's ability to be more comfortable watching fights. For example, if you have the ESPN app, you could be at your job watching a boxing match. You can be, I don't suggest you do this, fellas, but you could be out on a date with your wife watching a boxing match. Okay. You can go.
So let's have a true confession.
How many times do you have to go to the bathroom? Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I recall being at an event, a very important alumni event for my college, which I agreed to go to. And I realized it was the same night as a certain big fight. And I thought, damn, I can't cancel. Oh man, I gotta be there. I fired up my ESPN app. I had it phone parked kind of under the table down in my purse, and I had an earbud in so I could at least listen to the call, and I happily watched that whole fight during the event. Yeah, it does happen. It does. And you know what? For a lot of us, the food's a hell of a lot better and a lot cheaper at home. And there's no line for the bathroom. Although, one great thing about boxing, ladies, let me let you in on a secret. There is never a line at the ladies' room when you go see boxing. A big selling point, let me tell you. So, yeah, the world's changing. People are very happy. Most people now that with the price of flat screen TVs, if you like to have a big screening room in your house. It's incredible how inexpensive they have gotten, since they were all first introduced. The experience can be so good at home, and you can yap with your friends on social media while you're watching. It's kind of hard to get your butt to the arena or the stadium anymore, except for the really big events, the Wilder Furies, the Joshua Klitschko's, the fights that would fill up Wembley Stadium, the fights that will fill up Madison Square Garden. Sure, they're always going to sell, but they're the exception. They're not the every weekend fight that most of these promoters have to put on to make money.
And two, I want to say something. See, we're spoiled because over here, think about it. We have so many sports over here to watch. I mean, sometimes you get saturated with, you like, oh man, there's a boxing match on today, then tomorrow there's a basketball game, then there's a football game. So you get saturated. Some of these other areas, they don't have that saturation. They may have only one or two sports. So you can hold events over, you can hold a boxing match over there, the stuff that they see on TV, and you can take a fight over there, and it, just like with Saudi Arabia, they don't got boxing over there. So you take a fight over there, a fight like Joshua Ruiz rematch over there, yeah, it's going to be blockbuster. So is it getting harder? Yes, it is getting harder. But
go ahead.
Okay, it's getting harder. Yes, it's getting harder. I don't have a problem with him looking outside, because if you want to look outside for another stream of revenue, have at it. Because at the end of the day, like you said, we're still gonna watch. So go ahead and make your money at the live gate, because if you want to make more money at the live gate somewhere else, do just that. I agree with Jacob, try to put on some better cards, but it's just a situation of technology has prevented everybody from it. You're just more comfortable. Like a buddy of mine can order a fight. He knows I'm at work and he video calls me. So and holds the damn phone towards the TV. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you get 5-6 people on a video call, let them watch. So yeah, it's getting harder, but that's why, you try to either look for other things to entice more people, or you venture out.
We mentioned during this discussion about Joshua and Ruiz, and it's taking place in Saudi Arabia. So let's go to that fight and talk about it right quick. Like I said, we were off last week. I said that at the beginning of the show. As a result, we were not able to recap Ruiz Joshua to the rematch of going to U-Bow. They fought in Saudi Arabia. Joshua, who lost in arguably the upset of the year in June, he turned things around in the rematch, winning by 12-round decision. Unanimous decision. I didn't give Ruiz a round on my card after watching the fight. Here's my question. A lot of people have been criticizing Joshua in the aftermath, called his performance boring. I heard a couple folks say, well, that's not heavyweight boxing. I expect more of a heavyweight bout. My response is, okay, forget this. Why are you qualifying as heavyweight boxing? This is boxing. You hit and not get hit. And given how things went in the first fight, A1, B2, given how we know of Joshua's deficiencies in there in terms of chin and not necessarily being a great inside fighter, he can be countered. The way he went about the rematch, that was his best option to victory. So why y'all tripping so hard? Your thoughts?
Boxing fans are stupid sometimes, and they are. And this is Bo, Truth and Facts About Sports, 3 King Boxing. If you got a problem with me saying it, come find me. I have no problem. I got gloves here at my house. Come look for me. Boxing fans are stupid sometimes. Because here's the reality is that if you're telling me a guy is a top level fighter, then I don't expect a top level fighter to go into the fight and do the same stupid shit he did that got his ass whooped. I expect him to show me an adjustment. I expect him to show me he's learned. I expect him to show me there's growth. That's what a top level fighter does. Unlike the other guy who came in completely overweight and unprepared. So is it Anthony Joshua's fault that what he should have did in the first fight, he did in this fight and he won? Well, that's boxing. The number one goal in boxing is to what? To win. Larry, I remember Larry Merchant said this. Sometimes you just got to win and then look good in your next fight. And that's the goal. The ultimate goal is to win. So he went in there. He showed, he learned. He put on a boxing performance. People want to call it running. No, where did he go? Because I could have sworn he was still right there in the square circle. I could have sworn he was landing that damn jab followed by that right hand. I could have sworn that, you know, a couple times I saw Ruiz's head rock back. I saw Ruiz catch him too. So where did he run to? Where? Where did he go? I didn't want to see him turn his back, tuck ass, and leave the arena. So what? He fought a smarter fight. He fought he stuck to the game plan that you worked all those weeks on. That's what you do. When you work all the weeks on in something in boxing, you stick to that game plan if it's working. You only adjust if the other guy adjusts to your game plan. So I have no problem with his performance. I wish he would have done this in the first fight, right? And then on top of that, if you want to say, oh, it was boring and all this, okay, well, let's look at Andy Ruiz because he came in unprepared. So, in other words, Joshua did what he was supposed to do. Now it's your job, right, to try to offset what he was doing. So if you want to tell me the fight was boring, that's because the other guy didn't do his damn job. The one guy knew what his job was. The other guy didn't do his damn job to make it more exciting for me. So Joshua's performance was what boxing is. If you have followed boxing and watched boxing, we have seen Sugar Ray Leonard fought Duran one way, and then he fought him. The first fight, he fought him as Sugar Ray Leonard, and he wound up getting beat. The second fight, he fought Duran as Sugar Ray Aaron Pryor ducking Leonard, and he wound up winning. So that's boxing, y'all. You drop a game plan. You guys, another guy don't make the adjustment. So you keep doing what you're doing that's winning until the other guy makes you change. It was a great performance.
I'll go to you, Jacob. Your thoughts on the rematch with Ruiz and Joshua.
Yeah, when we did our preview show, I picked Joshua to win. And I thought he learned from his first fight, and I thought he was going to make the adjustments and, stay behind the jab and look to counter with the right and, just keep his distance. And that's pretty much what he did. To Bo's point, he adjusted and, he didn't just do what the same thing that, that got him knocked out in the first fight. And not only that, he dropped some weight, he's a big guy, he does a lot of weightlifting and, he's big up top. But I think he dropped like 10 or 15 pounds, for this fight, to come in a little bit leaner, not so much mass, so the hands they're not as heavy. And a lot of questions were around, well, when he was doing his game plan, can he do this for 12 rounds? And he proved that he could, and to Bo's point, he wasn't like that guy, what is his name? Curtis, whatever, that, when the bell rang, he walked out of the ring. He was in the ring. He was moving and sticking. He was throwing punches, The thing that really pisses me off about this fight, it's one of my biggest, with fighters not making weight, that's a big pet peeve of mine. But probably right up there is fighters that make excuses, but also say at the same time, I'm not trying to make an excuse, but then they list 10 excuses. I can't stand that shit. Andy Ruiz didn't train for this fight. He came in heavy. They asked him about it. He said, I wanted to be heavier because I'm going to have more power and blah, 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 blah. And then he gets beat. I think at the very last round, he threw up his hands like, oh, come on, let's fight. When the whole fight, he wasn't doing shit. He wasn't adjusting. He wasn't trying to do anything. And then he says, hey, I don't want to create excuses, but then he lists 10 excuses of, I should have trained, or I trained myself, or, blah, 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 which I can't stand that shit. Like he got his golden ticket. I think he's a good fighter. I think he has skills, but his lack of discipline may have lost him some other opportunities. I don't think they're going to give him the third fight, right away. his best bet is probably trying to go after the winner of Fury and Wilder if they fight, because I think he's semi-aligned with the PBC in some regards, but I don't think they're going to give him a third fight, and I don't think a lot of people want to see the third fight because of what he did, and he's basically asking for his, hey, let me have another shot, I'll do better next time, but it's hard to trust somebody when they put in a performance like that, and he all doing all the things that he was doing leading up to that fight, and and I get it, he became an instant celebrity. He went from being an undercard fighter to hitting the jackpot. I mean, I don't know how much money he made for this fight, but I know it's in the more money than he's ever made. I think it's like in the 12 million range or something crazy like that, which I get it, it's a lot of money, it changes things, and you start to believe your own hype, but I'm disgusted by that I just hate when boxers need to be accountable for yourselves. If you didn't do the things that you need to do and you don't want to stay champion, then you own up to it. Don't make excuses.
Unfortunately, Gail is having some technical issues on her end, so she's going to dip out her, and she will not be able to make it for the rest of the show. Comment here on the YouTube chat. He says from DS Kennel, excuse me, DS Kennels 210. AJ showed he has championship heart and mentality despite all the money he's made. He took his loss, made no excuses, went to the gym, worked on a game plan, laid off social media, and fought discipline. I agree. If you're going to throw down criticism here, throw it towards Ruiz. And he's the one who came to the gym late to prepare. His trainer wanted him to be back in the gym by July. He didn't arrive until September. Ruiz was the one who came in at 283 pounds, 15 pounds more than he did for the first fight. He was the one living too much of the life here. I'm not going to lay fault on Joshua's behalf in any matter. Sure, would you have liked to seen him fight a different style? Maybe, but he would have put himself in a little bit more trouble. Smart fight from Joshua, from my perspective. He did what he had to do. I'm going back to you, Jacob, and then you can follow up, Bo. Now that he's got the titles back, where do you think Joshua will go? He's talked about unifying in 2020, but he has mandatories coming up. One with Pulev, one with Alexander Usyk. The next step for Joshua in 2020. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're gonna, because the other belt is tied up with this, super fight rematch that's supposedly going to happen in February of 2020. So I think that obviously that fight's not going to happen next. I think what they'll probably do is do some mandatory defenses. Pulev on Usyk, as you said. Probably more. I would think they would lean more towards Pulev because Usyk is, I think, a little bit more of a dangerous fight for them. So I think they can get a couple defenses in and then see what happens with this Wilder Fury thing, and then see if hopefully they can make that fight. Because I still want to see it. It still has intrigue for me. I don't care that Joshua lost, or I don't care if even if Wilder lost or whatever. I'd still would want to see that fight because I think it's an interesting style fight. You have one guy who has, I would say, he's less than skillful, but he has excellent power, fight-changing power. And then you have another guy who's a little bit, I think, more skilled and but has been hurt in the past. So it'd be interesting. So I think he's just going to go for the mandatories.
Do you agree, Bo? Mandatories coming up next for AJ?
Yeah, I think Kubrat Pulev is going to be next, only because how strict the IBF is. You can make it. You can work some out with the WBO and Usyk. He's in your stable. Kubrat Pulev, I believe, is top ranked, right? And that IBF is strict. IBF don't play. You don't fight that man though. Thank you. We take our belt. We've seen him do this throughout history. Here's what's interesting to me is what Deontay Wilder needs to do. If he gets past Tyson Fury, he needs to try to either clear the path for Joshua by if Joshua fights Pulev, then you look to fight Usyk. Okay. If not, you got to get some names on your resume. You got over 40 fights and you got maybe 2 viable names on your resume. That's Gilberto Ramirez is like that. He's one of them dudes like that, right? I can name some more fighters, but if I name who I want to name, these people gonna go ape shit. So, but for me, if we want to see the fight in 2020, Josh is gonna need a little help. And my thing is, after Tyson Fury, if you get past Tyson Fury, look to fight Usyk. Or if Tyson Fury winds up fighting Usyk, then look to fight Pulev. Look to fight the other guy to clear up that mandatory, so you guys can fight. And that is it's key to me, because if he fights Pulev and he fights Usyk, I doubt very seriously we'll see a Joshua and Deontay Wilder fight that same year after that. They'll probably, you didn't fought 2 big fights. We'll put this off for early 2021. So maybe he fights Pulev and then fights Wilder before looking to fight Usyk. That might happen. But I just don't see you fighting Usyk and Pulev and Deontay Wilder all in the same year. I just that would be a tough gauntlet task to be even to ask Anthony Joshua to do.
There's also that the Wilder also has another option with that Polish guy that beat Ariola.
I don't want to see that no damn Adam Kalnaki. I don't want to see no. I don't want to see.
Man, look, I still want to see. I still want to see Deontay fight Dillian White. That's just me.
I want to see Deontay either fight Dillian White, Gerald Big Baby Miller, Derek Damn Chisora. Like, he needs names on his resume. He needs quality names on his resume, man. And
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that. Well, he's a name in the sense that again, he's an up and comer, and I'm not saying that it's a great fight. I'm just saying that because it's a different name. It's not a rematch with another guy that he knocked out. Because he fought Ortiz twice. Brazil before that. So I mean, the wells is becoming a little dry. But I agree with you. He needs to get some names on there. But it doesn't always happen like that, unfortunately.
Michael Hunter, on the undercard of the rematch between Ruiz and Joshua, he fought Alexander Povetkin. Fight was a split decision draw. DS Kennels 210 in the chat asks, assuming we don't see a third fight between Ruiz and Joshua anytime soon, the question he poses is, what you think about a Hunter versus Ruiz fight?
Actually, what's funny is because we was talking about Wilder. I wouldn't mind a Wilder and Hunter fight. Wilder, I would even entertain fighting Povetkin. And I don't want to hear that failed, PED test. So did Luis Ortiz, and he fought the motherfucker twice. But Hunter versus Ruiz. See, I just don't know if I care to see Ruiz again. Ruiz needs to have another fight to show me he's serious before I care to watch him again. So what he needs to do is he needs to regroup, go back, sit down, really think hard if you really want to be in boxing. Because the money got to him in a big way. He was doing the old Floyd Money Mayweather thing when he was holding the thing up to his ear, and he was hanging out with, I think, Logan Paul and whoever that dude was that fought. So he needs to do some soul searching. Manny Robles has even called him out and said, the dude was just, he was fucking off, So he needs to do some soul searching. I don't want to see Ruiz in the ring until he proves to me that he's worthy. Like when a guy do what Ruiz does, gains a lot of weight, or a guy who comes in tremendously overweight or even quits in the ring, I'm not eager to see you against anybody else top. You got to do something to make me feel like, okay, you worthy of even fighting a Michael Hunter for what I just saw you do.
Go into some news here. Going to make this based on a comment from MC Royal in the YouTube chat. He asked the question, "What are your thoughts, guys, on Tyson Fury changing his trainer to Sugar Hill uh, of Kronk Gym fame?" For those who do not know, news broke today that Fury has split with his trainer Ben Davison, uh, with the Deontay Wilder rematch looming. I go to you, Bo. Going back to you, Bo, and then you can follow up, Jacob. Your thoughts on Tyson Fury switching trainers from Ben Davison to Sugar Hill?
Hmm. Um, I'm not gonna harp on it too hard because he he's familiar with Sugar Hill. So it's not like it's not a guy he doesn't know. He's worked with him before in the past when he was down there in Kronk's gym. It's a guy he's familiar with. It's a guy he feels he knows or knows his style and how he fights. The whole, for me, it would be the whole getting rid of Ben Davis. I don't think I would have got rid of Ben Davis. I think I still would have left Ben Davis in there. I just wouldn't. He wouldn't have been the lead trainer. And that would have been key because you still want a guy who's been there with you. So if he sees something that maybe, Sugar Hill doesn't see and he knows you, he said, "Oh, you might want to do this." You know what I'm saying? So listen, Tyson Fury is very smart. And two, he's probably has, out of all the heavyweights, he probably has the best ring IQ. Maybe I would even say, if you want to put a top five together of best ring IQ fighters, Tyson Fury would be right there in top five of best ring IQ guys fighting today. Maybe even top three. It depends on who we're talking about, right? So he's a very smart dude. He's a very smart fighter. So he's one of those guys. He could have Ben Davis and Sugar Hill in his corner. I don't think changing trainers hurts somebody like Tyson Fury, to be honest with you. But I think he's doing it because it's a guy he's familiar with, and and I think he's with a dude that he feels that can help him get over that hump. And if that's how you feel, then that kind of what you do.
I'll just read some comments here. Davidson has publicly released a statement here. He took to social media yesterday, December 15th, and he said, obviously, it's not going to stop until there's an answer. Tyson and myself had to both make decisions for our careers, which resulted in our work and relationship coming to an end. However, we remain friends, and he will smash the DAZN. I'll go to you, Jacob. Surprised by the move of Tyson Fury switching trainers from Davison to Sugar Hill?
No, I'm not too surprised because I feel like Tyson Fury kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. He kind of does what he wants to do. He's very unorthodox in that way, and I agree with Bo. I mean, I think it would have been better if he would have had both guys there, because, like Daniel says a lot, and I agree with this, is that it takes some time to adjust to the new trainer and the new style. Like you want to have a few fights with him to iron out the wrinkles, in the differences. So he's going into his what will be his biggest fight with Deontay Wilder. I don't know. It could be a bad thing for him. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, I personally think that Wilder's gonna make the adjustments and knock him out. I have always said that I think Tyson Fury is wildly overrated, but I mean, I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people think that he's, I guess, the next great thing. So, but we'll see when that fight happens.
One more tidbit of news here before we start previewing some fights. Mikey Garcia, he's been out of the ring since his loss to Errol Spence. News broke yesterday that he's going to return February 29th. And he has signed a deal with Eddie Hearn and DAZN. Terms were not announced, but according to sources, the deal is for one fight with Hearn, retaining the right to match any offer for a future bout after his February 29th bout. Rumored opponent is Jesse Vargas, I believe. Your reaction to this move by Mikey Garcia? First Jacob and then you, Bo.
It's a very It's very. I don't know. It's very. I think it's good for Garcia. I think he's gonna beat Jesse Vargas pretty easily. Um, I'm not that high on Jesse Vargas in general. Um, his last fight, I think it was against Soto. Was it against Soto? I think it was at that fight. But Soto was an old guy that had a lot of miles on him, so he looked good in that knockout or stoppage win. But Mikey Garcia, though, I think his biggest problems is just I think he should be more active. He had that 2-year period where he wasn't fighting, and then he came back, and I know he's trying to challenge himself in the Spence fight and all that stuff, but he doesn't seem to be as active as I would like him to be. So him getting in the ring, I think, is a good thing. I think he's a great talent, and he has a lot more to offer. But we've talked about this before too. We don't, whether Mikey's head is in the game, because I know it's not what he really wants to do ultimately. I think he wants to be a cop, but if he can get paid and get back in the ring and fight a name, and hopefully it leads to other big fights, then great.
Your thoughts, Bo?
Oh, Mike, this is one topic right here. I'm glad we on. Mikey Garcia is about to get $7 million to fight Jesse Vargas, right? $7 million. And people will say up there talk about some tripping about how Al Heyman is overpaying. such hypocrites out there in boxing. It's a one fight deal, and it's a good thing. It's a one fight deal. It's good for Mikey. I agree with Jacob. After Mikey was doing very well. Remember, he was going, leaves Top Rank, he comes back, he fights Zalakatan, he gets a huge knockout. He fought Adrian Broner, he fought Robert Easton Jr., and Sergey Lipinets, became a 4-division champion. Then he fought Earl Spence. And so he was doing things in stride, making moves, and he took that loss. And what Mikey did was, even though he lost, he showed true grit. And Mikey's still a talent. So he didn't jump into another fight right away. Mikey has always stated he's a free agent, and this is just what he's doing. But it's gonna be interesting to see what he's gonna look like, because I want to know from a mental standpoint, what did that fight take out of him from Earl Spence from a mental standpoint? That's what I'm curious to see. And that goes to what Jacob pointed about being active, because normally when a fighter loses a fight, like Regis, for example, he's videos of him being back in the gym. He's talking about fighting. They get right back at it. Well, Mikey hasn't gotten right back at it. So I'm just curious as to, from a mental standpoint, what is this taking out of him? And also, I know we talked about Earl Spence, and I want to point something out. Earl Spence, I believe, is more hurt than we're being told, because he responded to Timothy Bradley on Snapchat, not on Instagram, not on Twitter, not with a video, but from Snapchat. So I'm just waiting. Once I hear that WBC has put him as champion in recess, that's it. That's my proof. That's my proof.
I mean, how can he not be? I mean, did you guys see that? I mean, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and that crash was, I mean, it was really bad. Like, I just don't see how he didn't get that hurt.
Yeah, it's a miracle that dude is still alive, because laws of physics say that he should be dead. Given the rate of speed that he was driving and how he flew through the. No, Thank God that he's alive. I agree with you, Bo. I think he's more hurt than people are letting on. And there's no coincidence that all the people who are around him, you don't hear from social media anymore. You don't hear from his trainer, anybody in his camp. You can't find them. They've been cricket since the crash. So it's more serious than reports initially indicated, in my opinion. So it's a wait and see will he get back. I know he posted something about summer 2020. We will see. We will see what this do. But in terms of Mikey, I know DS Kennels 210 says that Mikey Garcia is catfishing promoters. But,
He
If that
is.
is the case, he's getting rich catfishing opponents. I tell you that.
Mhm.
$7 million on top of what he made for moving up in weight to fight Spence. He's getting paid. He's getting paid. And
Yeah, you can't be mad at.
I'll give him that. He's getting
I
paid.
know how much. I know how much Jacobs. I know how much Jacob like him. He's not throwing that true blue Mexican grit. But come on, Jacob, you got to cut the man some slack, man.
No, I mean, I don't for what he's done in his career. I mean, I can't fault the guy. I mean, because it is the it is about money. I mean, this is their job. So, I mean, they're, literally putting their lives on the line, with the tragedies that we've had. So, I don't begrudge them getting paid, at all. And, it's not, if Eddie Hearn wants to throw that money, like he's been throwing money left and right, bunch of money to Joshua, a bunch of money to Canelo, Golovkin, like if he's going to do it, I can't fault the guy for taking the money. I mean, shit, if I'm going to fight, I want to get paid.
Yeah, question. Let me answer the question in chat from MC Royal. He says, "Are we sure it's a one-fight deal? Signing with DAZN means he has options to fight Taylor and Regis if he beats Vargas." Yes, technically it is, but as I said, Hearn has the right. Part of the deal is Hearn has the option to match any offer for a Garcia fight afterwards. So, assuming he wins, I'm going to presume that Hearn is going to do whatever he can to match and to exceed an offer for a future Mikey Garcia fight. So, yeah, it's technically one fight, but I think that Hearn is going to do some stuff behind the scenes to make sure it's going to be one more than one fight. Um, didn't invest in this much for it to just be one fight. So Hearn's got something under his bag, some trick under his bag, knowing him. Let's move on and start previewing some fights here. And no, I'm not going to talk about the Michael Zarafa Jeff Horn match. Zarafa just beat his butt the first time. I don't know why they're fighting again, so we're going to skip that. Going to move on to Phoenix and Gail's boyfriend, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Going to fight Daniel Jacobs on the 20th. The fight is going to take place on DAZN. I'll go to you, Jacob. I know Daniel Jacobs is moving up from 160 to 168 pounds, but Chavez Jr. has given me no reason to trust him. He may be the physically stronger fighter, but he's the slower fighter of hand and foot. He's not a better boxer than Jacobs. His MO is to bully guys. If Jacobs is on his P's and Q's, he should win this bout. I don't think he'll stop him, but he'll win by decision and win rather comfortably, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Chavez is garbage. He's been riding his dad's coattails for a long time, and it's disrespectful to his father. And and I know he has problems with the way he grew up and all that stuff. But I don't know, cry me a river. I mean, you made so much money by just being a personality and not being dedicated. It's hard for me to feel sorry for you. But I think Gail hinted at it earlier. There's a good chance that this fight doesn't happen. It might be Rosado that's fighting this fight. I mean, there's still a lot of things that have to happen between now and Saturday. But I agree. If Jacobs does fight Chavez Jr., I think Jacobs is going to handle him pretty easily. I don't think the weight is going to be a problem. Jacobs was a big middleweight. He was notoriously cutting a lot of weight. Also, he would come in, way heavier. Hence why he blew past the IBF's same day weigh-in when he fought Golovkin and so forth. So, I think this will be a good weight for him. And after that Canelo fight, I think it's a good way to get back on track. It wasn't a terrible performance, but I thought he could have done a lot more. And I think I think he could stop Chavez. Chavez is one of those guys that they say, like, once you quit, it becomes easier and easier to quit again and again. But if he fights Rosado, I think he beats Rosado too. So if that ends up being the fight that they do, then I think he wins either way.
Relative easy work for Daniel Jacobs in this fight, Bo.
No. Let me see. Oh man, I can't believe this, dog. This is embarrassing. Y'all are really picking Daniel Jacobs to beat the legendary Hall of Fame Julio Cesar Chavez, making his return to the sport of boxing and fighting a young lion like Daniel Jacobs. If Jacobs beat him, he goes. This is a great opportunity for Daniel Jacobs. Senior is coming back to the sport. Like, come on, man. Are y'all serious right now? Listen, he's a crafty old dude. Listen, old men are crafty. Trust me, I happen to know one on this podcast. Old men are crafty. All right. So you can't put it past the crafty old veteran. See, just like Rocky, right? He's got something in his belly. So the old lion got that one good fight left inside of him. And Daniel Jacobs is right for the picking. I smell a George Foreman, Michael Moore, man.
Bo, we talking about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., not Senior.
Oh,
talking about Gail's boyfriend. Gail's boyfriend, not Gail's boyfriend's father.
Oh, well, fuck it. Then I hope he get his head knocked off.
There is a flyweight title bout on the undercard, vacant flyweight title bout on undercard between Julio Cesar Martinez and Cristofer Rosales. I'm going to skip that right now, as well as the other fights on the card. Should we have a show next week, we're going to talk about that entire card, but we're a little bit pressed for time here, so I'm going to try to race through some of these fights. I'm going to skip the rest of the fights on the undercard of Jacobs and Chavez Jr. and jump to the fights that's going to happen on December 21st in Ontario, California. Going to air live on Fox. These two have been talking a whole lot, and these two, I mean Tony Harrison and Jermell Charlo, fighting a rematch for the WBC junior middleweight title. Harrison upset Charlo December last year to win the belt, won by decision. A lot of bad blood, a lot of beef, a lot of barking, Bo. I personally think that Charlo is going to make the necessary adjustments, because if he fights this rematch like he did the first fight, I think he'll lose again. This time, I think he will be more aggressive. I think he will fight at a higher pace, throw more punches, and do what he has to do against a Harrison, who I still think, in spite of what we saw in that first fight, I still think he has stamina issues late. I still think he has a chin issue. I just think this time Jermell is going to make the corrections and win the rematch, win by stoppage. Your thoughts?
Man, listen, I'm going to tell you what I don't like. I don't like a guy who has shown me that he has the heart to quit, not once, but twice. And then all of a sudden he becomes a tough guy. He's doing all this barking. Like, you know, it's kind of like the dude who was a wimp and he gets his first piece of booty and all of a sudden he can whoop the world. Like, dude, don't let this shit go to your head. Okay? And that's what this is to me. He didn't, okay, yeah, you won the belt, but he he didn't found some Negro in him that I didn't know this boy had. And I'm like, my goodness.
Yeah, he acts like people didn't forget that people just totally forgot what happened with him and Willie Nelson, and how he basically gave up, how he basically stopped fighting against Jarrett Hurd.
Yeah. I mean, this display of Crunk Jim should have been in a long time ago. Now, I will say this. I think from Charlo needs to make some adjustments. Charlo needs to stop thinking he's a knockout puncher artist and actually box. I think the athleticism and the boxing ability of Harrison gave Charlo trouble in that first fight. And I think Charlo even thought, oh, man, this dude is going to fade, and he didn't. So Charlo's going to have to do better. But I just have issues. I am not a Charlo guy. I'm really not. I am not a Charlo guy. I could go all day about my problem with Charlo and some of these damn millennials. They get on my fucking nerves.
You're not a Jermell Charlo or Jamal Charlo, or both?
Both. I'm gonna be honest with you, both. And now I think the one at middleweight I like a little better. Okay, but even him, he was running his mouth and doing all that talking, and then when Daniel Jacobs walked by,
this is true.
Like
This
he
is
had shit in
true.
his throat
He
all
was,
of a sudden.
yeah. He was the same guy who was talking lions only, and he'll do this to this fighter and do this to that fighter. But when Daniel Jacobs ran to him face to face, he was
Yeah.
quick as I don't know what. Cat just caught his tongue with the quickness.
Jacob, oh, I came by at the right time. What he told, okay. So yeah, but he's and this is what I hate about Harrison. He's making me root for the dude I don't like. He's making me. Why do they? That's why sometimes boxing irks me. You're making me root Andy Ruiz. You're making me root for the other guy. You're making me root for the guy I don't like in Charlo because you are talking tough, and I know your heart don't pump that kind of blood, and it is upsetting to me, man. So it's bittersweet because if Charlo wins, it's the guy I kind of want to see win, but I'm not too high on him. And if Tony Harrison wins, it's like, yeah, okay, but you ain't a tough guy, man. You're just not.
Your thoughts, Jacob?
I think, I could say for at least it's been entertaining, them kind of talking back and forth, the little sit downs that they've had. And, they said some funny stuff, which, I could tell that, Harrison's trying to get underneath Charlo's skin. And I feel like he is a little bit, but I think Charlo's going to make the adjustments. I think Harrison just had a good night, and Charlo kind of believed in his hype in the sense that he like Bo was saying, like he was this like knockout puncher, and he kind of forgot about his attributes and his skills. So he was, I think, looking for. I think he thought that he was just going to blow Harrison out and just knock him out. And then when that didn't happen, he didn't really have a plan B, and he kind of fell apart. But I don't think I think he has a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to make the adjustments, and I think he'll stop Harrison. I think he'll get to him and hurt him, and then eventually stop him.
One more fight here before we decide to shut things down. I know you were in denial about you being Cuban when it came to Francis Bartholomew. Let's see if you try to regain this back, Bo, your Cuban blood, as we talk about Guillermo Rigondeaux. On the undercard of Harrison Charlo rematch, he fights Liborio Solis. Rigondeaux's doing something I thought he should have done years ago. He's moving back down to 118 pounds, fighting for a belt there, a regular version of the WBA belt. On paper, if Rigo still has it, he should win and win comfortably against Solis. Your thoughts on this fight, or is it you're just at the point with Rigo at this stage of his career? He's in the ring, but you really don't care that much when it comes to your fellow Cuban. You got yourself on mute, Bo. Or you doing that on purpose?
Mike, are you trying to get kicked out of Three Kings, man? you really tried to get kicked out of Three Kings, man. I have so many problems with this. Again, it's the guy that quit in the ring. You got to do a lot to regain. You got to do a lot to regain my faith when you quit in the ring. And you are a former world champ. I have issues with guys who are former world champions fighting for this freaking regular title. It's a cheap way to become a world champion. And I have an issue with him fighting for the regular title. You should be going for that super title. If it's not the super title, leave it alone. So you quit, and now you're fighting for the regular title. Oh my God.
And for those who are listening to us on Spotify and Google Podcasts and Google Play Music, iTunes, or whatnot. We usually do this show we do this show live on YouTube. We usually not hide behind, but usually have our avatar up. When I asked him about Rigo, the avatar went away, and Bo had a look like, no, this mother didn't. No, this mother didn't. He was that disgusted. I don't think he really wanted to talk about this fight. I'll go to you, Jacob. Since Bo is just like, F this. Your thoughts on Rigo and Solis, or do you echo both sentiments regarding this fight?
I mean, I can't say I'm exactly with Bo. I mean, I'm interested to see what he does, but I don't know. I feel like maybe time has passed Rigo. He did some great things, a while back, and I think he's not getting younger. He's definitely getting older, and so if he can get another belt and whatnot, but I mean, I don't think he's gonna see that center stage like he did during his heyday. So this is kind of him winding down his career, and I don't know what that means for him. As far as I guess money and notoriety, but these belts are important to a lot of guys, and so if he can get another belt in another division, or back down at the 112. Is he on the undercard of Charlo?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see him on the roster, but it's weird.
I think I may have forgot to. I think I may have omitted this fight in the recaps. Jermall Charlo fighting Dennis Hogan. Yes, I did omit that fight. Quick word from you guys. Your thoughts on it? Charlo stopping Hogan. I want to say in 7 rounds. Hurt him early. I think he put him down early in the fight. It basically had his way with him. Quick thoughts on his win, and where do you think he will go from here? Personally, I would like to see him fight Andrade with the announcement that that Jermall is basically getting the option from PBC to venture over to try to make a big fight on the DAZN. Will we see a eventual fight between Jermall Charlo and Andrade? First you, Jacob, and then you, Bo.
I don't know, because I know that they're saying that he can go, I guess, across the street, you want to call it, but I mean, I've always still wanted to see that Canelo Charlo fight. I've always wanted to see that, but it doesn't. I mean, we don't even know what weight Canelo is gonna continue to fight at. He has obviously a lot of options, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Andrade fight. I mean, I know Andrade's been calling him out for years, but are they going to be able to make that fight is my biggest question. But if they can make it, I mean, I would love to see that too. But I don't know. It just seems like this fight that happened with Hogan was just too small. He's moving up, and I just don't think that his punches had any effect on Charlo, and Charlo just walked through him. So to go back to an earlier theme, though, I don't think this is good for Charlo, though, to get a fight like that, because I don't think it makes him a stronger fighter by beating guys that he's probably gonna beat instead of challenges. But it's hard to get the fights that he wants also. So I mean that then WBC doing the whole thing where they make these guys whatever, the franchise champions, and they're not making them fight the mandatories. And I know Charlo's been a mandatory for a long time, or number one for a long time, since he's gotten the regular belt. But they do a lot of that, like Daniel says, fuckery. So it's disappointing.
Quick win on Jermall Charlo's win over Hogan, and thoughts of a possible fight with Demetrius Andrade in 2020, Bo.
That was a fight that shouldn't have happened. Hogan got propped up because of his performance against Jaime Munguia, and everybody kind of propped him up because of that performance. He shouldn't have been at 160. I'm just going to be honest with you. But Jacob make a very compelling point, because here's the reality is if you look at the top 5 dudes, and I'm gonna go off memory here, or try to go off memory. I know you got Daniel Jacobs' book. Daniel Jacobs is already about to fight, so Sergey Derevyanchenko, Jaime Munguia I think is 3 or 4, and then it's like Falcoa and some other dude I don't know, right? So you're not going to get Jacobs, you're not going to get Jaime Munguia. The only guy you have is Sergey Derevyanchenko. Then after that, it just gets ridiculous. You got Rob Blanche, Salucky, Toriano John. It's just stupid, right? But despite all that, Jermall Charlo is a guy that Demetrius Andrade needs that name on his resume, because Demetrius Andrade has been he's one of those dudes that's been because of bad business decisions, or just not being able to get with the right promotional company, has not been able to get that one name that he needs on his resume. He had Billy Joe Saunders, but Saunders had a situation happened, then Saunders immediately went to 168. So I would like to see it, because both of these dudes are still in their prime, and this time they're both champions, right? So it's not like one was a challenge with, okay, this time you guys are both champions. So I would really like to see that fight. If Charlo can't get Andrade, then try to see if you can get Ryota Murata. Somebody mentioned to me one time, Chris Eubanks Jr. No, fuck that, no, hell no, please God, no. No. But yeah, I would rather see Demetrius Andrade, only because both of these guys are young and in their prime, and the winner would hold 2 belts. That could put some pressure on Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. Are you going to fight one of these dudes or not? And I think that's the thing. Like, everybody's sitting around waiting to see what somebody's going to do. No, you fight each other, you grab belts. It put pressures on the other guys who you think is not trying to fight you. So you want to get Canelo to fight you? Simple. Fight Demetrius Andrade, beat Andrade, and now you got 2 belts in a division that he has a belt in. So what you going to do? Because he's the WBA super champ. So what you going to do? You're going to fight me? You're going to run? Gennady Golovkin, what you going to do? You're going to fight me? You're going to run? So yeah, it's either Demetrius Andrade, and if not Demetrius Andrade, then the only other viable option you have for a qualified middleweight opponent, something that he don't have, would be Sergey Derevyanchenko.
And I think we're going to start to shut the show down on that note. I want to thank first and foremost everybody in the live YouTube chat, DS Kennels 210, MC Royal, Sean, for their comments and their questions. Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody else. DS Kennels 210, MC Royal, Sean, for their comments and their questions. I want to thank Gail, who joined us on the show earlier. If you want to talk the sweet science, if you want to talk small business advice, media, because she does teach media on the side, you can check her out on Twitter at PR Pro San Diego. On Twitter, once again, PR Pro San Diego. You can also check out her articles writing about boxing on Communities Digital News. That Communities Digital News, COMM Digi News, COMMDIGI News, NEWS. You can check out her work as she writes boxing for that media outlet. I'll go to you, Jacob from Japa. Boxing for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk movies, because you appear from time to time on the Wrong Reel movie podcast. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it was good to be on with Bo after a long hiatus. I always like talking to that guy, and shout out to Gus and Daniel. I don't think Daniel can make it tonight. The regulars, for Boxing News people at Three Kings Boxing, everybody. But yeah, I can be found on Twitter, JRATM23. Or I'm not going to be going to the fight this weekend, unfortunately. But the next fights that come up, I'll probably be at. So you can always hit me up there, and we'll share a beer.
Indeed, and shout out to Daniel, who couldn't make it this evening, unfortunately. Shout out to Gus. Go to you, Bo. For those who want to talk the sweet science, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, you can always find me at right here, Pound for Pound Boxing. Very good show, very knowledgeable people. Good conversations we can have back and forth, disagree and keep it civil. That's what's missing, in my honest opinion. When you look at some of these other dudes, all that yelling and screaming, that's for the birds. So you can find me here. Of course, you can find me on the Three Kings Boxing Podcast. That's on the Prodigy of Boxing channel, Mondays and Thursdays. We're going to get that back going. Shout out to Gus, Gail, Daniel. And I want to say, again, I know we did this but man, you guys, if you haven't had a chance, if you follow Three Kings and you haven't had a chance, man, go check out that article that Jacob wrote. I think it was a little while ago, but it was so profound. I still like reading it sometimes, even now, especially when I'm in the bathroom. But but no, seriously though. Seriously.
I appreciate it, man. I really do. I respect you guys, everything that you guys do at Three Kings. I follow you guys on Instagram, and all your stories that you guys do, and I know Mike, you write for them too, and you guys do a good job over there. So I appreciate it.
Most definitely. But no, it's all serious, all kidding aside though, man. Definitely go check that out. And let's just be true to the sport of boxing.
Indeed. If you want to talk boxing, if you want to talk music, if you want to talk fitness, you know what it is, Brother JR. At Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. That is the link. On the right of the blog page, you will find links to where to find us on social media, where to find us on platforms that carry RSS feed, the links to my online fitness page. And also you can check out, as Bo alluded to, I am a contributor to Three Kings Boxing. Submitted an article today. It's on threekingsboxing.com about IBF flyweight champion Murata Mutalane, who's going to earn a record purse in his upcoming bouts December 23rd against former strawweight, junior flyweight champion Akira Yagashi. I wrote a personal write-up for that, so you can check out my work there. Again, as Bo said, Three Kings Boxing. Please take time to check that out for the latest in boxing news, info, and entertainment. So yeah, you can find my stuff not just on Pound for Pound Boxing Report, but also on Three Kings Boxing. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Chavez Jr. and Jacobs, and also other fights on that card, like the fight between Martinez and Rosales for the vacant WBC title at 112 pounds. Maurice Hooker, he's going to fight on that card. Gabriel Rosado is going to fight on that card. Josh Kelly, British welterweight, he's going to be fighting on the card as well. We will also recap the Harrison Charlo rematch, Rigondeaux and Solis. Efe Ajagba, promising heavyweight, he's going to fight on that card as well. And depending on when we will do the fight next week, we'll talk about Murata, WBA middleweight champion. He's going to defend his bout, WBA regular middleweight title holder. He's going to defend that belt against Stephen Butler. On the undercard of that, you're going to have Shiro defend his WBC junior flyweight title, the aforementioned fight between Mutalane and Akira Yagashi. And Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez going to make his long-awaited return to the ring. He's going to fight on that same card as well. And do a preview of Gervonta Davis. He's fighting in the ATL against Yorkis Gamboa. John Pascal fighting Badu Jack on the undercard of that. Jose Uzcategui, former super middleweight champion, is going to be fighting on that card as well. So, again, thank everybody for their comments on the live YouTube chat. For Gail from Communities Digital News, for Jacob from Jump Boxing, from Truth and Facts About Sports and Three Kings Boxing. I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 275 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.